If you're at the point where you have gotten your two fives together, close position, check out the drop 2 voicing. Greetings everyone, Jim Walker here today. Just a quick video on vibraphone voicing and something called the drop 2 technique. This is actually something I'm putting together with an eye towards a future video dealing with coming up with vibraphone parts for big band arrangements, where I want to reference drop 2 voicings, and I would just want to have this available as a separate thing just to make that video a little bit more concise, and also because I think it's a standalone topic on its own. So this is a way to vary your chord voicings. Most of the time, I'm going to speak for all of us, when we learn to play chord voicings, particularly when we get into jazz and start studying seventh chords, we're stacking thirds. C major, everyone's favorite key, every other note. Put that all together. And we have a bog standard root position, closed position, meaning all the notes are within the span of an octave, C major 7th voicing. Works great, sounds great, nothing wrong with it. I use it all the time. But that's what we start out with, is this closed position voicing. And you learn your inversions. And you learn it in all 12 keys. Etc., etc. And again, nothing wrong with these. You learn your 2-5-1 progressions. I'm going to go to E flat major, 2 chord F minor 7, 5 chord B flat dominant 7th, 1 chord E flat major 7th. Again, works great, and one should be able to execute these on the instrument. It's a very basic technique. But I want to get into a variation called the drop 2 voicing. This has been around for forever. I happened to learn about it when I was studying with the great Bill Molinoff. When I was junior or senior, I can't remember which year he was there. He was there for both years. I can't remember which year we discussed this there, when I was at Ithaca College. And he was the one who made me aware of this drop 2 voicing, but it's not unique to vibraphone. If you study big band arranging, you'll deal with it, especially in saxophone writing for the 4 or 5 saxophones. It's just a way of taking the same notes you've got. You're not substituting any notes. You're just moving things up or down by an octave. So let's start with the same C major 7th voicing I referenced before. Now we have 3 words to define here. Drop 2 voicing. Voicing just refers to the set of chords I'm playing, how they're arranged. This is one voicing for C major 7th. Here's another voicing for C major 7th. That's the second inversion. Here's another voicing for C major 7th. So we can take these notes and move them around a bunch of different ways. I've still played C, E, G, and B in all of those voicings. That hasn't changed. The 1st, 3rd, 5th, and 7th of the chord. I just rearranged them differently. But if we take this voicing, all we're going to do is number the notes top to bottom. Voicing is the first term. Drop 2, the other 2 terms. 2 refers to the second note from the top of the voicing. Highest note is number 1, 2, 3, 4. And so to take the second note from the top, and the third word of our definition, drop, we're going to lower it. We're going to drop this G down the octave, replace it with that G. So we started out with this, take our second note from the top, move that down the octave, reassign the mallets accordingly, drop 2 voicing. The C, the E, and the B all stay exactly where they are, no change of octave. Root position, closed position I should say, drop 2. One more time, it's like an eye exam, better like this. Closed position, drop 2. And you can do that with an individual chord, or you can do that with a chord progression. I was playing the 2-5-1 in E flat major before. You could take this voicing, And in each of these chords, I'm going to drop the second note from the top. So this C will go down the octave. F minor 7 goes from this to this. B flat dominant 7th goes from this, drop the second note, to this. And E flat major goes from this, drop down to here. So closed position. Drop 2, and the same smooth voice leading that we have in this closed position. Common tones remain. We move the other notes as short a distance as we can. That same set of voice leading applies to the drop 2 voicings as well. So we take the C down the octave, and you'll see it's still very smooth voice leading. B flat dominant 7th, E flat major 7th. 2, 5, 1. So very simple. You just take the second note from the top, drop it an octave. If the closed position voicing sounds good, the drop 2 voicing will sound good. It's a very basic technique. Bill also threw a couple more variations at me that I'll mention here, even though drop 2 is going to be the focus and one I'm going to reference the most. In addition to drop 2, there was also drop 2 and 4. And I'm going to come up here higher in the range of the vibraphone so we can do that. 1, 2, 3, 4. Drop 2 and 4 means I take these two notes, lower them an octave. The first and third from the top stay the same. Drop 2 and 4, C and G down the octave. It's one of the voicings I played earlier. Drop 2 and 4, closed position. Drop 2 and 4. He also suggested skip 2 and skip 2 and 4. So back to our C major 7th voicing. If drop means to lower an octave, to skip means to raise an octave. So the G, second note from the top, now will be moved up to that G. C, E, and B all stay exactly where they are. Skip 2. Closed position. Skip 2. And the last one, skip 2 and 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to skip the G up the octave, skip the C up the octave. E and B will stay where they are. So C and G up the octave. Skip 2 and 4. Root position. 2 and 4. Skip 2 and 4. Root position. Skip 2 and 4. So all this is octave displacement. You can do whatever you want. Take a note, move it up and down the octave. Be creative. Come up with some different voicings. You'll find things that you like. You'll find things that you don't like. That's part of the process. Now, the second part of this video, it's not quite as obvious. Not only do these drop 2 voicings, we'll go back to our same major 7th chord. Not only do they sound different, we have different intervals in there. We're using a little wider range of the vibraphone, but there's a very practical benefit to this as well. I find they're a little bit easier to play on the instrument. They lay on the instrument a little bit better. Now, our musical choices shouldn't be made just because something is easy to do, but if there's a way to play something that gets a different musical effect, and it happens to be easier, all the better. So, I mentioned intervals a couple of times, and this is where this is going to come to the fore. If any of you have studied out of the Phil Krause mallet books, you're familiar with his forms, although I think I was taught this one long before I saw the Phil Krause book. I can't remember which number form this is. It's early on in the book. It's taking the major third interval and planing it, moving it up and down by half step. So I start with major third C to E. I'm going to go again up and down by half step. Make a note of how many times in each of these voicings I have one mallet on the white keys, one on the black keys, or if you prefer, lower manual, upper manual. See how often there's one in one place and one in the other place, versus both mallets down here on the lower manual, both mallets up here on the upper manual. So in that exercise, there are 12 different notes in the chromatic scale, which means there are 12 of those dyads, 2 notes of dyad. That's what I was taught in music school. 12 of those pairings of notes at the major third interval. There are, by my count, hopefully I get this right, 4 of them where both mallets, both notes are either one manual or the other. Starting on C, F, F sharp, or G flat, whichever you prefer, G natural, and that's it. 1, 2, 3, 4. 12 minus 4 means that there are 8. Yep, I did something wrong in there, but I'm going to press on. Most of these have one mallet down here, one mallet up there. Again, you should be able to do it, but it reflects itself in when you start to multiply that, or compound that, I should say, by using 4 mallets. 2 mallets in the left hand, 2 mallets in the right hand. We'll go back to that same 2-5-1 progression in the key of E flat major. I've played it a couple of times today. F minor 7th, B flat 7th, E flat major 7th. You can see how much of this sort of motion is involved, and I really have to live on these edges of the bars to get away so I'm not landing on the nodes where the chord is. Which takes a little practice. It's a little easier to do on marimba where the ends of the bars hang over, upper manual over the lower. But here you have to learn your striking spot so you get as far away from the chord as possible without catching the other bar. Also, striking here, if I strike on this spot of the bar, it's right over the damper bar. So the vibrations go straight from the bar into the damper bar if it's not depressed. And that means the vibrations go from the damper bar into the frame. And if your vibraphone is prone to rattles, as many are, you're more likely to get them. So again, you should be able to execute this. Closed position, smooth voice leading, nothing wrong with that. But nobody, like this voicing, nobody likes that. All my students, whenever we're doing dominant 7th chords and we get to this, we're in our intervals, or we get to B flat, or sorry, B dominant 7th, they hate it. They can't stand having to get their hands in like this. Stevens grip, doesn't matter what 4-mallet grip you're using, you got to do this. So now, let's take this and apply the drop 2 technique. We did this earlier. So the C goes down the octave, F minor 7, B flat 7, E flat major 7. And then down to the F chord, 2 down here in the lower manual, 2 up here in the upper manual. When I get to the E flat chord, 2 on the upper manual, 2 on the lower manual. But more importantly, the hands are consistent. They're both mallets up here in this hand, or they're both up here in this hand. And that has to do with the intervals. Look what I've got here. We'll go back to F minor. I have a perfect 4th in this hand and a perfect 5th in this hand. They're inversions of each other, so if I'm going to go through the 4ths, the same way I did the 3rds, and you see how much back and forth there was, I'm going to do the same thing with the perfect 4th interval. And take note of how many times both mallets are either lower manual or both are upper manual. By my count, there were only 2 instances where I had a mix of 1 in the lower manual, 1 in the upper manual. F to B flat, F sharp to B. Everything else was both mallets down here, both mallets up here. So that reflects in the voicings, which does 2 things. One, I find it's just a little easier to play. Also, makes it easier to have both mallets within the center section of the bar. That's a whole other video about where we strike in the bars. I tend not to strike dead center because that's, well, all right, I've opened the door. I'll take a second and go into it. We all learned this is a nodal point. that spot on the bar. Least amount of fundamental, the low part of the note, most harmonics. That's true on marimba too. And that's why the chord for the hole for the chord is drilled there. It's not because the hole is drilled there. That's why they choose to put the drill hole there. You take a bar with no hole, and you're going to get the same effect on the sound there. You start to get a little fuller as you go away from it in this direction as well. So I tend not to strike dead center because that's another nodal point. Least amount of harmonics, most amount of fundamental. For me, it sounds a little tubby here. I like a blend of it. But still, tangent notwithstanding, I can operate up here in this range between the bars rather than being confined to a very limited striking spot here. It just lays a little easier on the instrument. And the times where I do have a mix, I'm at a wider interval. It's a little easier to play this versus this. How much movement is there versus sorry, I transitioned to a different quality chord, but you can see it down here. That fourth is easier than a third. A fifth, easier than a third. So this drop 2 technique, worth checking out. Not only is it a different sound, not only is it a sound that I think works really well on the vibraphone, but it's also a little bit easier to play. So if you're at the point where you have gotten your 2 5s together, close position, check out the drop 2 voicing. Easier or not, it's worth checking out. So thanks for checking out. Speaking of checking out, thanks for checking out the video. Have a good rest of your day. I'll catch you next time.